Hello there, Frontline Church family and friends. Today's Moravian text reading is Romans 11 verse 33 through to Romans 12 verse 8. It is, of course, Good Friday. Good Friday, the day that we remember Jesus dying on the cross. It's a day to pause and to gaze at the cross, to fix our eyes on the cross, at what took place there, to gaze and consider how someone like him, the perfect Holy One of heaven, could do something like that, suffer and die for someone like me, for someone like you, just to gaze and behold and remember. And I suppose getting the right gaze, the right focus is incredibly important for us. The right gaze is perhaps one way of saying what the biggest challenge is for us in the Christian life, because focus is worship. What else is worship if it is not singular focus? Whatever has the primary focus in your life, whether your focus is primarily on yourself or a person or your children, or your primary focus is on a football team or on a way of earning money or job, that becomes an idol, the thing that we worship. So the challenge of the Christian life is to keep our eyes fixed on Jesus, our gaze on Jesus, our focus on Jesus, because focus is worship. The American poet Mary Oliver said that attention is the beginning of devotion. So let's pay attention to the work of Jesus this Good Friday. Gaze, look, behold, see him, and you will reflex with praise and worship, because that's what happens. The input, the stimulus through our eyes is to see the work of Jesus. The reflex is to worship. Behold, believe, behave. As we right behaviour reflexes out of right belief reflexes out of right beholding, to see him afresh. And this is exactly what's happening in Romans 11:33, the end of Romans chapter 11. Paul has been writing about God's salvation plan, God's magnificent salvation plan. He's been writing about God's great mercy and grace, that we would be adopted into God's family. Paul is reflecting on this, and as he does so, he bursts into this incredible song as he beholds God's great wisdom and mercy and salvation. He reflexes with this song of praise. We call it a doxology, a speaking of glory, a speaking of or singing of glory. He talks about the depth, the canyon of the riches of the wisdom and knowledge of God, God's purposes and plan displayed in salvation through Jesus, his unsearchable judgments, his path beyond tracing out, beyond our understanding. Who has known the mind of the Lord, this mystery of election and salvation? Who could even give counsel to God? Who has ever given to God that God should repay him? That in some way salvation is payback for our own behaviour or good deeds? Of course it is not. Of course it is not. This is a song of worship that reflexes. And then as we move into chapter 12, a further reflex takes place. Remember that we're talking here about if you poke in the eye, you blink. If your knees tap, your knee will swing. As Paul beholds the great plan of salvation, the great mercy of God, he calls us to reflex with surrender. Behold the mercy of God displayed on the cross, and you will reflex with surrender, with sacrifice. Surrender, sacrifice, these are challenging words, aren't they? If I'm honest, I find it difficult to surrender, to lay down my life daily as a living sacrifice. If I'm honest, it's not an easy thing. It's far easier to say than to actually do. But surrender and sacrifice, listen, they are not the goal. That is not the goal. It is the outcome. It is like the blink when poked in the eye. It is the outcome of beholding God's mercy, beholding the cross. So let's consider our gaze today. Let's make the cross, the work of Jesus, what we behold, our focus this Good Friday. And as we do so, we will naturally reflex with joyful surrender to Jesus, as natural as blinking when poked in the eye. Have a wonderful day in his presence.